Welcome back. I'm Simi Sarah, and you are listening to the Mike Smith Show. Here's something people love to talk about, ICBC. Do you know how much power ICBC has? Well, one woman has recently found out she lost a court case against ICBC, had to pay court costs, and while that was pending and she was working on how to pay them back, she found that she couldn't even get her driver's license renewed because ICBC was going to hold that hostage until she paid what she owed them. Some people might be surprised to find that out, but not Thomas Harding, who is with the Trial Lawyers Advocacy Group and joins us now to talk more about this topic. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. But this might surprise some people to find this.
Well, yeah, but it's just a power ICBC uses to get money from you.
And does it work?
Most people would rather go to jail than lose their driver's licenses.
Wow. Okay. And I guess this is unusual because for many years it was a separate thing. The government gave you your license and ICBC dealt with insurance.
Yeah, they amended the act. I don't know when, but it was years ago, and it used to be Motor Vehicle Department gave you your license, and ICBC insured you, and if you owed money to ICBC, you'd still get your driver's license. But they changed that, and now ICBC can refuse to give you a license until you pay them. And
have you heard of many cases of this happening?
It's not uncommon. You can often get them to back off that. They've got an internal appeal process, or you can go to court. Poor lady, the best answer is maybe she has to go to court.
Again.
Yeah.
Which is what she just did. This is one of those things that people love to hate ICBC, but when they hear stories like this, it certainly doesn't help.
Of course, I hate ICBC too, so what more do you want me to say?
And why? Why?
Well, I'm like everyone else, I guess, that I see what used to be a Crown Corporation insurer on the workers' compensation model, not-for-profit, supposed to help people, and over the course of years, they've become more and more like, the nastiest insurance companies that exist in the U.S.
When do you think that happened?
I don't think it happened on one day. I think it evolved. The people who work at ICBC have the view that everyone who makes a claim must be lying, and that's how they look at the world. So they resist paying, and if you owe them money, they use their bureaucratic powers to make you pay.
And they certainly have probably more power than a lot of people realize, though, don't they?
Well, I think, that people are really shocked that they can lose their driver's license because they owe money. And, in the case of most people in urban areas particularly, they can't work unless they have a car. And so, this lady who I understand it was about $40,000, I don't know her, I don't know the case exactly, but she may lose her livelihood because she can't afford to pay ICBC back. And, that seems kind of a stupid approach that they'll take away her job because she can't afford to pay them.
And so you've obviously dealt with ICBC on a lot of cases.
Yeah, for 21 years.
So what are some of the sort of things that you've seen about their tactics?
How long have you got?
Fire away. Let's see.
Well, it's the usual insurance approach that they assume that, well, they don't assume, I guess, but they treat every claimant as if they're lying and fraudsters. They demand levels of proof that nobody can meet. They treat themselves very differently from you. One example that makes me crazy is if you're hurt on your own first-party insurance, you ask for, say, massage therapy, ICBC won't pay for it because they say it has no value. But their employees have massage therapy as a medical benefit. So it's the same employee who says you can't have massage gets it herself. They do all kinds of stuff like that. It's really weird. How
do you win, though? I think most people go into ICBC, if they've had an accident, they figure, I'm just going to tell the truth, and they'll see my side. Of course they will. How do you fight back against something like that, or how do you deal with that? What's the best way?
Well, the regular person should always tell the truth to ICBC. They have sources of knowledge that would astonish most people.
Like what?
Well, they pretend to be your friend on Facebook. They have a whole department at their offices where they creep the internet. So they'll find out that, even if they can't friend you, they'll find somebody who maybe went to your school, they friend that person, and then slowly they creep up to you and say, well, I'm a friend of Algernon's, can I be your friend? And you say, well, any friend of Algernon must be a friend of mine, and you let them in, and then they pretend that they're just some person, and they start talking about their lives, and they'll mention that they had a car accident, and then you start telling them about yours. And
you're kidding me. It's that insidious?
Yep, and it's not illegal. It's, and a lot of people are surprised that who they're talking to isn't really their friend, but...
Well, you know what? Isn't that partially our own fault, though? We tend to give everything. First of all, if you haven't been totally honest and then you're saying something different on Facebook, well, you kind of...
No. I agree. If you're lying, you should get exposed.
Yeah.
And you should be punished. But, of course, what ICBC does is they don't need to catch you lying. They only care about catching you in anything. So, people who have irrelevant parts in their history, whether it's a teenage conviction or an early life teenage, for example, sexual indiscretion. ICBC will use that stuff against you. They really will.
And you've seen this in court.
I had a case years ago where they threatened that if my client made her claim, they would bring up the fact she had an abortion at the age of 16. Yeah, she was about 30 when the accident happened, and that was kind of distressing.
That's very distressing.
Yeah, well, it hurt them ultimately, because we played it back.
You can turn the tables around on something like that. I've also had conversations with people, like sort of run into them socially, who work for ICBC, and they've told me that they actually don't tell people they work for ICBC. If they're at a party or something, they don't tell people that's where they work because of what happens in that kind of situation, right? So it's almost like they even know what their reputation is.
Yeah. One of the really weird things is that if you work for ICBC and you make a claim, my understanding is that they treat all of those claims as fraudulent.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So they do that to their employees?
Yeah, and it's like, the SIU for the police or internal affairs, that they treat their own people as frauds because, of course, they know how the system works. And what that does to morale, I can only guess, instead of saying, you know what, claimants from our company, we're going to have State Farm deal with those claims or something like that.
We're going to bring in somebody independent to deal with that. So when you hear stories like this, you are not surprised at all?
I've never been surprised at anything nasty that ICBC's done. I've been angered, but I've never really been shocked. What we see, we plaintiff lawyers in BC, what we see is the tactics of a couple of big nasty insurance firms in the States. 5 to 10 years later, they come to ICBC, which is great for us because we can watch the American lawyers and see how they beat those firms, and then we just use the same thing against ICBC. So it's
but these are tactics that are known, as you say, to private insurance corporations.
But the problem is that the people that ICBC deals with, the bulk of them are just regular lay people who've never been to a lawyer and won't go to a lawyer. So if ICBC lies to you, or plays hardball with you, or refuses to pay, say, your medical benefits until you give up your case against the guy who hit you, remember, you've got two separate insurance. One you paid for, and one you're suing the guy who hit you. But they say, well, we're not going to pay you your wage loss benefit until you give up your case against, the guy who rear-ended you. And so you're in pain, you're out of work, you're hungry, and you give up. And if they can settle 1,000 or 10,000 cases like that, then they save the money that they should have paid. Maybe 1 in 10 cases goes to a lawyer, and mostly on average, I think we do well for our clients. But
well, do you think a lot of people, though, if they didn't go to a lawyer, if ICBC just were willing to settle for just slightly more generous terms, a lot of people wouldn't even bother going through the whole process?
Hey, they could put us all out of business tomorrow. I've challenged them to do that for 20 years. So the scenario is you go to ICBC and they say, well, we'll give you $1,700. You go to a lawyer and he looks at your case and he says, well, I think you're entitled to, let's say, $50,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, whatever. What do you want to do? And if the spread is big enough, most people will put up with years of hassle and invasion of their privacy to go to ICBC. But if you came to me and ICBC said they'd give you 30, and I looked at your case and said, it's probably 60. It'll take you 2 years. They'll make your life hell. They'll, film you going to school and your children going to church and all of that stuff, and I'll take a third of it, and at the end of the day, you'll end up with, say, $40,000. Most people would ask the lawyer if he were crazy and take the offer from ICBC.
Yeah,
But the spread is so huge that people will put up with the trouble. And they never pay us more than we're entitled. They never give a nickel more than the person deserves. So even with a lawyer, they never give more than you're entitled to by definition. So they're cheating people by lowballing them. ICBC published a few years ago in a Canadian insurance journal that all things being equal, same injuries, same type of plaintiff, same loss of work, all of that, all things being equal, they paid unrepresented people a quarter of what they pay with a lawyer.
Wow.
Yeah. So if the lawyer takes a third, you're still well up on the game if you go see a lawyer.
Oh, that's
and I think there's a whole lot more useful things that people could do with their lives than be tort lawyers. We could be dentists or doctors or teachers. People need personal injury lawyers because insurance companies treat them badly.
You were actually making an argument to put yourself out of business, Tom. That's amazing.
I'd be happy to, because there are other things that we could do.
Well, listen, thanks very much for your time today.
Okay.
All right, have a good day. That is Thomas Harding. He is with the Trial Lawyers Advocacy Group. Boy, it doesn't take much to get people talking about ICBC. We'll take a quick break. You're listening to the Mike